for anyone who watched the first vlog, and there were some people, which is why I'm doing another one, you'd know that my mum has Alzheimer's, and my siblings and I take turns in like staying with her for a 24-hour periods or whatever, and then hand over to another one. So she's always got somebody there, and she's never actually been alone since my dad died. My dad died in November of 2014, so 3 years ago, and I suppose right up until the end, we thought he was going to pull through because he'd had so many close calls. We knew he was really bad, but I think we really felt that he was going to pull through. And then when we were told that, gather the family, Mum had Alzheimer's at that point. And I'll never forget, like, Mum being there and having to tell her that dad was not going to make it, and not knowing how she'd react because because of the Alzheimer's and all that. But I mean, she first laid eyes on Dad when she was like 16, and they married when he went off, and but never forgot her and came back and courted her a couple of years later, and they married when she was 21, and she was 78 at this point. So do the math. It's nearly 60 years, and so they'd never been apart, and she was about to lose him, and I remember like telling her, and she didn't cry, and she went into the room. He was still alive. He died later that night. He was still alive, and he was still awake to some degree at least, and she held his hand, and I remember her saying, like, "We've had a wonderful life, Jim," and it was all about comforting him, and then we had her kind of on a chair, like with her legs up, sleeping at the bottom of the bed, and then I was trying to stay awake, and I thought I was staying awake until I heard Martine said Declan, and I was awake, and I awoke, and she said, "I think he's gone," and that was like 10 past midnight, and my big thing then was, like, we woke Mum, and my big thing was, like, I think guys always have this thing where they have to try and stop women from crying, which I've realised now is not necessarily a good thing. Like, crying's not a bad thing, but for me it was, oh look, Dad, Dad's not in pain anymore, and he's gone to heaven, and Mum and Dad were both very religious, so it was all that, and then I took her home, and I stayed in the bed with her while everybody else came to the hospital, and all that went on. But I stayed with her then until the following day, and she's never been alone since. And so yesterday I was looking after her, and everything was grand. We watched Ireland football game, and we won, and everything seemed fine. And I was thinking she was pretty lucid at the moment, more so than sometimes, and I was quite pleased. And she's had a cold, and that was less. And then this morning we woke up, and there's a TV in the room, and she said, "Oh, shall we see what's on TV?" It's about 10 in the morning, so we turned on some game show, and we were just watching that, and then she suddenly said to me, "Where's Jim?" Which is my dad. So it's 3 years later, and it's the first time that something like that's ever happened. She's never been to the grave. She didn't want to go. She couldn't look at him being lowered into the ground. And it kind of just really hit me because, with Alzheimer's, you don't know when stages are going to go through and when they're going to develop. But I just said, "Oh, well, he passed away." You're not supposed to say, "Do you remember? Do you remember?" Because it puts the whole kind of Alzheimer's thing into perspective, into focus in their mind or whatever. But I was like, "Oh, he passed away," and I went through it with her, and she was quiet, and then I saw her kind of wiping her eyes. So I don't know whether she was wiping away tears or, she has a cold, so she wipes her eyes a lot. But she was just kind of quiet, and then I left it for a little while, and then I was like, "Are you okay, Mum?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm okay," And then I was saying, "If you have anything on your mind or is," and she goes, "No, I'm fine," And then we were watching, we were watching TV. And it kind of suddenly struck me, and I don't have an answer, but like, mum and dad are of a generation that didn't really cry, you know. Um, when my grandmother passed away, or you know, I never saw mum or dad crying, and like, yet they would have gone through all that grief as well. But in front of the kids, they were strong, and they felt they needed to be strong and hold the fort so that we'd have some sort of security. And now in her Alzheimer's, I'm wondering, is mum the same? Like, even though she's at a like so advanced in Alzheimer's that she's not really aware, like she lost what had happened to dad. Is she still you know, of a mind that, like, you know, is it that it doesn't affect her at that level? And I don't believe that for a moment. Or is it that this is my son and I'm not going to break down in front of him, you know? And it was just really, really poignant for me. And it kind of set me wondering about that, you know, like, I suppose, about the strength of that generation of people, you know, and the selflessness of them, but also just the nature of the Alzheimer's. And then, like, thankfully, I know this sounds terrible, but thankfully mum had a small stroke at one stage. And, you know, what we say now is that small stroke affected your memory a little bit, you know. So, because she hates the idea of having, she doesn't know she has Alzheimer's, and that would really scare her. So saying that, you know, oh, it's a stroke, but the doctor said that as long as you can remember your kids, and this is a mantra that we repeat whenever she gets concerned about her memory, and we say, oh, remember the doctor said as long as you can remember your children. But it kind of, like, what happened to Jim, you know, like that whole thing that happened today. And I says, oh, you know, the whole memory thing, and as long as you can remember your children. And then I was, God, what if she can't? And that would really scare her. And then she started kind of going through, and what's happening with them, what's happening to, you know, and she started naming them, and it all moved on from there. So I wanted to do a vlog today because it's the last chance I had to do one before the launch of Pins and Needles, the book, on Thursday night. So I don't know, it just went off in some weird direction, but it's as a result of what happened there. If you're still with me at this stage, I do hope you subscribe, because that would really be an encouragement to keep plodding on instead of just returning to writing little things here and there. And this is so much easier for me to just chat away into the camera. So thanks a million for watching. Here's where you'll find me on social media, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe just down here. Thanks a million.